The living room felt like a warm hug that night. Soft fairy lights glowing, the smell of buttered popcorn in the air, and the sound of my friends' laughter spilling into every corner. I was curled up on the rug, my knee brushing against Ethan's, feeling that cozy comfort of being with people who've known you for years. Game night had always been our thing, a mix of harmless fun and just enough mischief to keep things interesting. Everyone pretended it was just for laughs, but we all knew the best part was when someone's answer sparked a week of whispered group chats. The rules were simple: answer the question or take the shot. Most of us would rather face the burn than give away something truly personal. Sophie, one of my closest friends from college, leaned forward with this little smirk I knew all too well. "What's your biggest secret?" she asked Ethan, her tone playful but sharp enough to catch my attention. I smiled, expecting something silly. Maybe about the time he locked himself out in boxers, or the stash of candy he hides in the garage. But Ethan froze, not for a second, long enough for everyone to notice. The laughter died down, replaced by an awkward silence that clung to the room. He wouldn't look at Sophie. He wouldn't look at me. Then, without a word, he grabbed his drink and downed it in one go. The room moved on like nothing happened, but I couldn't. I caught Sophie's eyes lingering on him a little too long, and his eyes avoiding hers completely. And right then, something deep in my gut whispered, this wasn't nothing. I tried to shake it off, telling myself I was overanalyzing. It was just a game, right? But the way Ethan's hand gripped his glass afterward, tight, like he needed something to anchor him, stuck in my mind. And Sophie, she didn't even look away. Her lips curled into this faint, knowing smile, the kind you give when you've just watched someone squirm for all the right reasons. As the questions moved around the circle, I laughed where I was supposed to, took a sip of wine when I didn't want to answer, and even teased a few friends. But my mind kept looping back to that moment, like a song stuck on repeat. It wasn't the pause that got me. It was the look between them. Or maybe it was the look they both tried so hard not to have. By the time the game wrapped up, people were gathering their coats, tossing empty bottles into the recycling, and hugging goodbye. I smiled, played the good host, and thanked everyone for coming. But inside, something had shifted. I could feel it in the pit of my stomach, an unease I couldn't name yet. It wasn't just that Ethan wouldn't answer. It was that Sophie asked the question like she already knew the answer. After everyone left, the house felt too quiet, like the laughter had been sucked out along with the last gust of cold night air. I stacked the glasses in the sink, letting the warm water run over my hands, trying to rinse away the unease that clung to me. Ethan was in the living room, half watching some late-night show, pretending nothing about tonight had been strange. I thought about asking him right then, but something told me not to. Not yet. Instead, I studied him from the doorway. The way he sat a little too stiff, the way his eyes didn't wander toward me, like he knew I might ask the one question he didn't want to answer. I'd been married to him long enough to recognize the signs. He was hiding something. I just didn't know what. And Sophie. Why did it have to be Sophie who put that crack in the night? As I went to bed, I lay there listening to the faint hum of the TV in the other room, my mind replaying that one moment over and over. The smirk. The pause. The shot. It was nothing, I told myself, just a silly game with friends. But even as I tried to sleep, I knew I was lying. Something had started tonight, and I wasn't sure where it was going to lead. But I had a feeling it wasn't anywhere good. The next morning, over coffee, I decided to ask him, casually, like it had barely crossed my mind. So, what was with that question last night? You looked like you'd seen a ghost. Ethan chuckled, shaking his head as if I'd just told him the world's dumbest joke. It's just a game, Maya. Don't overthink it. His voice was light, but his eyes didn't match the tone. They were guarded, like he was mentally checking the locks on some door I wasn't supposed to open. I let it drop in that moment, but my mind didn't. Instead, it kept circling back to Sophie's smirk, her tone, the way she seemed almost entertained. Over the next few days, Sophie started texting me more than usual. Little things like asking if Ethan would be at a certain event or what time he got off work. It was framed as casual chatter, but something about it made my skin prickle. At the same time, Ethan suddenly developed a love for guys' nights. Poker, pool, catching up over beers, always on the nights Sophie was mysteriously busy and couldn't hang out with me. I tried telling myself it was all coincidence, but deep down, the pieces were starting to rearrange themselves into a picture I didn't want to see. That sinking feeling in my stomach? It wasn't going away. It was growing roots. I started paying closer attention, not in an obvious way, at least I hoped not, but enough to catch patterns. Ethan's phone, which used to sit face up on the counter, was now always face down. He'd step out to take calls, even if it was just for work stuff, and his tone would shift the second he crossed back into the room. Sophie, meanwhile, had mastered the art of slipping his name into our conversations like it was nothing. One night, as I was folding laundry, my phone buzzed with a message from her. "Hey, is Ethan still planning that fishing trip?" I frowned, not because of the question itself, but because I hadn't even heard about any fishing trip. When I asked Ethan about it later, he brushed it off with a laugh. "Oh yeah, just something I mentioned in passing. Not sure if it's happening." His words were easy. Too easy. By then my gut was screaming at me. I'd always trusted my instincts. They'd gotten me through more than a few messy situations in life. And right now, they were telling me that something was way off. But I didn't have proof. Not yet. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that accusations without evidence are just whispers in the wind. I needed something solid. I found myself replaying old memories with Sophie, wondering if there had always been signs I'd missed. Girls' nights where she'd ask how things were really going between Ethan and me. Jokes about how handsome he was, always brushed off as harmless fun. Back then, I'd laughed with her. Now, those same moments felt like little seeds she'd been planting, waiting for the right time to let them grow. Ethan wasn't making it easier. He'd get home later than usual, his excuses wrapped in casual shrugs, traffic, overtime, errands. I'd watch him take off his shoes, move around the house, talk about nothing in particular. But every word felt like it had been carefully chosen, designed to keep me from looking too closely. I was already looking. I just wasn't letting him know it. Lying in bed at night, I'd stare at the ceiling while Ethan slept beside me, steady breaths filling the silence. I'd wonder when exactly things had shifted, and why Sophie's face kept appearing every time I tried to ignore the truth. It wasn't just paranoia anymore. It was the beginning of something I knew I couldn't stop. And soon, I was going to find out if my gut was right. The chance came on a Sunday morning. Ethan was in the shower, steam fogging up the mirror, his phone left on the nightstand like it had nothing to hide. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. I told myself I was only going to take a quick look, just to quiet the storm in my head. But the moment I unlocked it, I knew I wasn't ready for what I'd find. There they were. Messages from Sophie, stretching back months. Not just friendly banter, but flirty lines. Inside jokes I didn't understand. Little heart emojis tucked between casual words. My fingers scrolled faster, my stomach twisting tighter with each exchange. Photos, hotel addresses, times and dates that lined up perfectly with the work trips and errands Ethan had told me about. It felt like my chest caved in. I wasn't just losing my marriage. I was losing my friend, someone I'd let into the most personal corners of my life. My knees gave a little, and I had to sit on the edge of the bed, phone trembling in my hands. But somewhere inside the heartbreak, a colder, sharper feeling began to form. I wasn't going to cry to them about this. I was going to make them wish they'd never played me. I started taking screenshots, every message, every photo, every detail that could cut through any excuse they might try to spin. I saved them to a hidden folder, my hands steady now, my breathing even. It was strange how quickly the shock began to cool into focus. I wasn't going to be the woman who screamed and begged for answers. I was going to be the one who walked away with all the cards. The more I read, the more the puzzle fit together. Their little rendezvous weren't accidents. They'd been carefully planned, each one hidden in plain sight. Birthdays, anniversaries, random days when Sophie had other plans with me. The betrayal was woven into the fabric of my everyday life, and I hadn't even seen it until now. That burned more than anything. By the time Ethan got out of the shower, I had already put his phone back exactly where it was. He walked past me with a smile, kissed the top of my head like everything was normal. And I smiled back. I smiled because he didn't know that, from this moment on, the rules had changed. Over the next few days, I built my case like a detective in a crime drama. I printed out the screenshots, booking receipts, and even the hotel confirmation emails Sophie had sent him. I slid them into a neat folder, chronological, undeniable. Each page was another nail in the coffin they didn't even know they were building for themselves. There were moments I wanted to confront them right away, to watch the color drain from their faces in real time. But the thought of doing it separately felt incomplete. No, they deserved to see each other's shame side by side. They'd been partners in this betrayal. They could be partners in the fallout. So I waited. I smiled at Sophie when we texted, played the loving wife for Ethan at dinner, and let them think they were still in control. Inside, I was counting down the days. When the moment came, it wouldn't just be a confrontation. It would be the kind of ending they'd never forget. A few weeks later, I sent out a group text. Game night at our place, same crew as last time. Everyone responded with thumbs ups and smiley faces, Sophie included. I could almost hear her voice in the chirpy, "Can't wait," she sent back. Ethan didn't suspect a thing. He even offered to pick up drinks on his way home from work. I just told him to get whatever he wanted. After all, tonight was going to be memorable. The living room looked almost identical to the last game night. Warm lights, bowls of snacks, music humming low in the background. I wanted it to feel familiar, like we were all slipping into the same easy rhythm. Sophie arrived in a breezy top and her usual confident smile, planting a hug on me like nothing in the world could touch our friendship. I hugged her back, my grip steady, my mind elsewhere. As the game began, laughter flowed, and the drinks loosened tongues. I waited patiently, sipping my wine, letting the conversation roll over me. And then, the turn came around to Ethan. My heart didn't race this time. Instead, I leaned forward with the kind of smile that said I'd been saving this moment. Same question as last time, babe. What's your biggest secret? The room seemed to shrink. Ethan's smile faltered, and I could see the muscle in his jaw twitch as he glanced at the bottle in front of him. Sophie froze mid-sip, setting her glass down a little too carefully, like she was suddenly aware of how shaky her hand had become. A few friends chuckled, expecting some playful banter, but the energy in the room shifted, just like it had weeks ago. Ethan tried to laugh it off. Really? We're doing this again? His voice was lighter than his eyes. He reached for his drink, but I leaned forward, stopping him with nothing but my gaze. Don't worry, I said, my voice steady. I'll answer for you. The words felt like the click of a lock opening. He didn't know yet that the door it unlocked was about to slam shut behind him. I stood, crossed the short distance to the coffee table, and placed the folder right in the center. No theatrics, no shouting, just quiet precision. I flipped it open, letting the pages fan out. The texts, the photos, the hotel bookings. The laughter died instantly. Chairs creaked as people leaned in. their expressions shifting from confusion to shock. Sophie's face drained of color. Ethan didn't move. I didn't rush. I let every set of eyes in that room take in the details, the pet names, the meeting times, the cheap hotel addresses that now felt like they were written in neon. Someone let out a low whistle. Someone else muttered, "Oh my God." But I stayed silent, watching Ethan and Sophie squirm in the thick, suffocating air they'd created. When I finally spoke, my voice was calm, almost conversational. "Turns out my biggest secret," I said, glancing at Ethan, "was thinking I had a loyal husband." I turned my eyes to Sophie, who wouldn't meet them, and a true friend. I didn't wait for excuses. I didn't want them. There was nothing they could say that would make this hurt any less, or make me feel any smaller. I gathered the folder, slipped it under my arm, and headed for the door. No dramatic exit, no slamming. It was quieter than that. I left them in the warm glow of the living room, surrounded by friends who'd just learned exactly who they really were. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. The days after game night were a blur, but not the kind that comes with regret. It was a clean blur, like finally wiping a smudge off glass you didn't even realize was clouding your view. I filed for divorce that same week. No hesitation, no second guessing. Ethan tried calling, then texting, then sending long, apologetic emails. I didn't answer any of them. Some doors don't need to be slammed, they just need to be locked for good. Sophie didn't reach out directly. Instead, I heard through mutual friends that she was going through a lot. I didn't ask what that meant. I didn't care. What mattered was that my phone was quieter, my life was calmer, and the pit in my stomach had vanished. The woman who used to fill my living room with fake smiles wasn't in my life anymore, and neither was the man who let her. Our shared friends didn't have to choose sides, but they did. Almost all of them stopped inviting Ethan and Sophie anywhere. I didn't ask for that loyalty, but I won't lie. It felt good. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the outsider in my own circle. I was the one holding the truth, and that truth had set me free. Weeks turned into months, and life began to feel lighter. I found myself saying yes to invitations I would have once turned down. Wine tastings, weekend markets, even a pottery class where I made the most lopsided mug in history. These weren't just distractions. They were pieces of a life that felt entirely mine again. Every time I caught myself laughing without that heavy weight in my chest, I realized I'd been holding my breath for years. One night, sitting at a small bistro with a couple of women I'd met through a friend of a friend, I felt something unexpected. Ease. We talked about books, travel, and ridiculous dating stories. No one in that conversation was silently measuring my marriage or keeping a secret from me. It was honest, unfiltered connection, something I didn't realize I'd been starving for until I had it. Meanwhile, I'd occasionally hear snippets about Ethan and Sophie, mostly that they kept to themselves now, their smiles tighter, their circle smaller. I never asked for more details. The truth was, their lives didn't interest me anymore. I wasn't looking back. My world had shifted, and theirs was no longer a part of it. One evening, I hosted a small dinner at my place. Nothing fancy, just good food, music, and people whose company didn't come with an edge of doubt. We lingered over dessert, laughing until our sides hurt, glasses of wine catching the warm light. Somewhere in the middle of it all, I realized I wasn't just moving on. I'd already moved past them. This wasn't the life I was left with. It was the life I'd chosen. As the night wound down, I stepped onto the balcony with my glass, looking out at the city lights. I thought about how one simple question, "What's your biggest secret?" had cracked open everything I thought I knew. And how my answer, delivered in the right moment, had ended more than just a conversation. It had ended a lie. I went back inside, joining the laughter, the warmth, the sense of belonging. For the first time in a long time, I felt completely at home in my own skin. One question ended their little secret. My answer ended them.